Good evening, everyone. I am here to make a recipe. It's a new recipe to me. It was one that my mother-in-law posted on Facebook, and then my mom took that and said, hey, I have some ingredients for it. Will you make it for us? So I am doing the French onion stuffed pork loin roast. My mom had the pork loin. It's actually two that were in the package, and then she also had a bag of onions, so she dropped them off, and I'm gonna get it made. We will eat it for dinner, and then of course my parents will have some as well to go along with that. So I am going to be actually following a recipe. I have my daughter's Chromebook up right here to the side. I of course am going to adjust it a little bit, tweak it a little bit to my own liking. You can look at this recipe and follow it exactly how it is. That's up to you. Again, I've mentioned this before, that's what's cool about cooking is you can really adjust it, add things, take things away that you don't think you'll like in it. So that is what I am going to do. So we are doing this pork loin roast, and I am going to be serving it with mashed potatoes and then roasted green beans that I've made before. The roasted green beans that have a little bit of brown butter and lemon on them. So that is what we'll be having. So to get started, I am going to start by, well here, first I kind of will show you everything that I have out ready to go. Your basics, salt and pepper. I have my extra virgin olive oil. I have garlic powder out, a bunch of yellow onions. I am going to throw a little Marsala cooking wine in because I have it. You don't have to. Sherry wine is good in there too. White wine, any wine, or no wine. It's up to you how you want to do it. I have here, this is shredded Gruyere and domestic Swiss cheese mixed together. I found this already shredded in a bag at Meijer. So I have about 2 cups there of that. I have, of course, fresh garlic. In here, this is going to kind of simmer in with the roast. I have a couple bay leaves, some fresh thyme. Again, one of those things I really prefer when I can to use fresh herbs. I prefer the flavor over dry herbs. If you have dry and that's what you want to use, that's totally fine as well. I can't wait, actually pretty soon I'll be planting my herbs outside, so then I have them all summer and fall long. But I did buy a couple packages, and then what's left I wrapped in a damp paper towel and threw it into the fridge, into a bag. So they should last for a little while in there. I also have a little bit of fresh rosemary. Normally rosemary doesn't necessarily go in French onion soup, but I'm gonna do a little bit just because we all like it and why not, I figure. I have my pork loin roast here. And then behind me, I have some yellow potatoes that I will peel and chop up and get those boiling. I have a little bit of butter, about 2 tablespoons that I will melt down and turn into brown butter for green beans. And then in my big pan, I have a couple tablespoons of butter, as well as a little drizzle of my light olive oil. I'm gonna turn the heat on low, and that's gonna be for our onions. We're gonna get those going first, because caramelized onions usually take a good 20-25 minutes to get to that nice caramel color that you want. Green beans I have over here. I'll get those tossed up in a little bit. They're already clean. I actually bought them that way. Trader Joe's, they were already cleaned and stuff like that, ready to go. So I have those in my pan. And if you haven't noticed, if you can see, I just have to point it out. It makes me very happy. I have some beautiful tulips here that I got from one of my girlfriends. And then I also have some super fresh eggs that were just laid that I got from another one of my friends. And I'm so excited to use them. We're actually going to use them on Sunday to make some souffles. So I have to point it out because it makes me happy. Don't laugh at me, Mia. Okay, I also have a couple extra tools over here to the side. So I'll just show these to you. I have my cooking twine. You can find this at most stores. Jewel, Meijer, Target. Cooking twine to tie up our roasts when we're ready. I just have my peeler for potatoes. I do have my meat pounder out for when we open up our roasts, and then just some kitchen shears that I have ready to go. My washcloth for my hands, clean cloth. I don't know if I pointed out I have beef broth over here too, sorry. I have about 2 cups of beef broth that we're gonna use in this. So, I can't get my words out. All right, so we're gonna start with the onions first. I'm gonna throw my heat on low. I'm just gonna keep it on low for now, just to get the stuff melted down. Then I might as well turn my heat on underneath the other butter there, and we'll start, because that only takes a few minutes to get our brown butter done. So with your onions, they are gonna cook way down, which is why I do have so many onions out. I have 6 like medium-sized onions. I think that should be enough. Again, you can do more if you like. They do really cook down. So for these, we are going to cut our ends off, peel that outer skin off. Whoop, And then I'm just gonna cut them into, let's see, just real thin slices. I'm just gonna keep them in the circles like this. So we'll get those cut up, nice and thin. And then as you get them cut, it's gonna fall apart. Let's take them and we'll get them into our pan. There we go, hold those together. And just kind of break them apart as you're tossing them in here. And we're gonna slowly get those cooking. All right, so again, I'm just gonna get all these cut and kind of get them sauteing in my pan. I would say maybe over medium heat. Again, you don't want the onions to burn. You want them to take that time to caramelize, get nice and soft and brown. And once they really get going, butter splattering, I'll throw a little bit of salt on them as well. All right, I'm in the midst of still doing my onions. I'm gonna go back on something I told you to do. I told you to cut both ends off and then slice them. Don't cut both ends off. Still leave that little stem end intact. Otherwise, those outer layers keep wanting to peel off as I'm doing my slices. So just helps hold that onion together. Makes it a lot easier to slice it up than without it all wanting to fall apart. So yeah, only cut the one end off. I don't know what I was talking about. Okay? All right, I got all my onions going in the pan. So again, looks like a lot, but if you've ever caramelized onions before, you'll see that they cook way down. So if you have a nice big pan, ooh, get off. That's the best way to do it so they have room to move around. I went ahead and turned the heat up to like a medium heat now. The butter is melted down there. I'm gonna go ahead and give them a little sprinkle of salt here. And then I'm gonna go ahead and turn the heat off underneath my brown butter because that, yeah, does look to be done. So this is kind of the color that you want on your brown butter. If you can you see it in there? Mm-hmm. Okay. So, and it really gives off that nice, like nutty kind of aroma to it. So we're gonna just set this to the side until we're ready to use it with our green beans. So I'm just gonna kind of throw it back here, let it cool down. So while our onions are going, I think I'm gonna go ahead and get these peeled and diced and then put into just some cold water. Always put cold water in your pan while you're peeling these and stuff so that your potatoes don't turn brown because they will oxidize and turn brown on you. So, I think that'll be my next step is just getting the potatoes going for a little bit, and then we will make our rub that we're gonna put on the pork loin, and then we'll get that pork loin butterflied open, I hope. So I'm gonna get these peeled and going, and I will be back in just a moment. All right, guys, so I have gotten my potatoes peeled and diced up in here. And I turned the heat on medium. I'm gonna get those boiling. As soon as they start boiling, I will definitely salt that water, of course. In the meantime, every couple minutes, you wanna toss your onions around so that the ones on the bottom don't burn. But as you can see, they're getting soft. They're not even browning yet, which is good. That's kind of how you want them to cook. You don't want them to get brown too fast, like I said. So I still have the heat on medium. I'm just gonna give them a good toss. And then, since they are starting to get soft at this point, I'm gonna go ahead and add some garlic. I have to. The recipe does not call for it, but I'm gonna throw some fresh garlic in because I feel like it can't hurt. So I'm just gonna kind of do these, I'm gonna slice it, I think, and just throw it in slices so that it's not too small, and then it starts burning while the onions are caramelizing. But yeah, I feel like a little bit of garlic can't hurt this dish. Oh, that one does not want to work. Oh, but okay. So we'll give them a smash. Get them peeled if I can. So yeah, we'll just take it. And I'm gonna leave them like this. I don't think they need to be any smaller. Why not? So they're gonna get nice and soft in with the onions. So I will get those sliced up like that. We're gonna throw them in and let them slowly start cooking with our onions, and then we will go ahead and make the rub that we are gonna put on the pork. Get that ready to go. All right, guys, I have my garlic in there. I gotta say, there is not a better smell than onions and butter cooking together. It is one of the best smells, I swear. Now you've got that garlic in there. So you can see they're now just starting to brown up a little bit, which is good. They're still gonna cook a little longer. I'm gonna go ahead and turn the heat down just under medium at this point. All right, we still got a while to go until that water gets boiling. Okay, you know what? I think I might go ahead and, why not? I'm gonna throw my couple bay leaves in here with the onions. And I'm gonna go ahead and throw some of my sprigs of fresh thyme. All those little pieces will come off, and then I'll get the little stems out of there a little bit later. Again, so I'm following a recipe. Like I said, this recipe doesn't call for the fresh herbs. It calls for dried, what did it say? Dried Italian spices, which I don't have. So you can use that too. It also says oregano. Love oregano, and I love dry oregano, actually almost better than fresh. But I'm not sure that oregano is a flavor that I want in this or with the onion soup, so I will not be adding that, as I mentioned before. So what we're gonna do is take some of our extra virgin olive oil, a couple tablespoons, and some salt, good amount of fresh black pepper, and then I am gonna throw in here, since we already had a lot of fresh garlic in there, I am gonna do just a little bit of my garlic powder. I don't know, teaspoon or two maybe, somewhere around there. Salt, kind of the same idea, maybe a couple teaspoons. Let's get our black pepper. We'll do quite a bit of the black pepper on a coarser grind. Alright, let me stir these real quick. Yeah, these are looking good. So this recipe also calls for cooking the broth right away with the onions when you start the onions, so that it slowly will absorb into the onions, as well as some will evaporate out. It'll concentrate that flavor. I like that idea, but I kind of want there to be a little extra like brothiness sauce at the end. Since we're serving it over mashed potatoes, it might be nice to just have a little extra sauce. So I am going to add the broth, but I'm going to add it kind of right at the end of their cooking time, so that it leaves a little bit more of the juice in there for simmering the roast. Okay, so back over here. So again, a little bit of rosemary, one sprig. I don't want to overdo it with the rosemary flavor. And then on the thyme, like the little fine ones, you don't have to worry about taking the leaves off the stems. Those stems are nice and soft. If it's a woodier stem, you can tell a little bit harder, then you just want to peel against it. So all your little leaves are going up, just peel it right down, pinch it and peel it down, and then you'll get all those little leaves off. And usually the top is like a softer part of the stem. So then you can just break that off. Now we're going to give these a little chop. And this will be our rub for both sides of our pork loin that we have. Okay, throw these all over here. Okay, I'm gonna set that there. So just take your knife. You want to give it a good chop, especially with that rosemary, so you don't have like the big pieces of the rosemary in there. Just give it a good chop in all directions, scoop it back together. So it's nice and small. And then this is gonna go with our olive oil, and then we will get that pork loin butterflied and ready to go. All right, so at this point, these onions are pretty close to being done. So I'm gonna turn the heat back up a little bit, and I'm gonna go ahead now and add my broth. But you know what, first, I forgot that I had Marsala wine. Little Marsala cooking wine. So I'm gonna throw that in first so it can kind of cook off a little bit. So I don't know, maybe, half cup-ish or so. We're gonna let that cook off for about a minute. Then we'll get that broth going in here. All right, so now we will get the broth. And then I will turn the heat up, and I am gonna go ahead and let this cook a little bit. Again, I just didn't want it to cook the entire time to fully evaporate out. But I am gonna let it cook down a little bit, and like I said, it kind of just concentrates the flavor of your beef broth and whatnot in there. So we'll just let this simmer for a few minutes. I'm gonna go ahead and throw a little black pepper in there. Oops, got a little onion skin. That out of there. Throwing some black pepper. Remember, I already had salted that. Plus the broth has some salt in it. So for right now, I'm not gonna add any more. I'll taste it kind of at the very end. Looks like our potatoes over here are going pretty good. Well, they're getting there. I can tell that water's getting hot. So I'm gonna go ahead and salt those now. A couple really good pinches of some kosher salt in there. Help flavor those potatoes as they're cooking. Give them a stir. They still got a little while though to go because that water's not boiling just yet, but all right, see, now we got this at a good bubble, so I'm gonna go ahead and let this cook at least maybe like 5 minutes or so. All right, guys, still bubbling back here. Potatoes are still going. Just gonna get these tossed super quick. We're not gonna cook them yet, but we will cook them in a hot oven, probably about 10 minutes or so, so they're still a bit crunchy. So we'll give them a good drizzle of some light olive oil. I'm just gonna keep it pretty simple. Nice healthy pinch of kosher salt or sea salt. I am gonna do a little garlic powder on these. Okay. Some fresh black pepper. Then we're just gonna toss them around. They're ready to go in the oven when we are ready to cook them. And then again, when they come out, we will quickly toss them with our brown butter that we made and some fresh lemon juice. All right, it is time to get our pork loin ready. I did the first one because I needed to make sure that I knew what the heck I was doing with it. So basically what we're gonna do, again, if you're just doing this for your family, one of these is plenty. This is, again, what my mom already had, what she gave us to make, and plus it gives them a meal or two as well, which is pretty cool. So we are gonna take this pork loin, and again, this is not a tenderloin. It's not to say that you couldn't do it with a tenderloin. Tenderloin's much smaller, of course, definitely doesn't cook as long. I think this is probably a better cut of meat to do this with. So what we are going to do is butterfly it, if you will. And we're not gonna just butterfly it like in half because that'll be way too thick. We're gonna kind of do it in thirds. So you wanna take a nice sharp knife, and then what you wanna do is, I'm gonna cut about, roughly like a third of the way up, okay, from the bottom. And just kind of keep an eye on it, because you don't want to start angling your knife down and then you cut through or you angle up too high. So just take your time with it. And again, the idea is just both sides about a third the way up. I can't really see, but okay. And if you need to, you can just kind of start opening it up a little bit. How's that looking, Mia? About a third? Yeah. All right. So keep going. Now you don't want to cut all the way through, so keep that in mind. You want to be able to open this up almost like a book, if you will. Okay, I'm gonna go just a little further with it. Okay, I'm gonna open it flat. Now what we're gonna do is this thicker side, you're gonna keep cutting. So you're gonna kind of angle your knife down at first to get down in there, and then you're gonna go right through the center here, okay? So kind of start out angling it down and then level it off. And then we're gonna cut this. Okay. Oop, see right there, I need to angle it down that way a little bit more. All right. Okay, same thing, don't cut all the way through. You just wanna cut it so that you can lay it nice and flat. Oh, I see that part's just thin. Well, no big deal. So now that you have it like this, we are gonna pound it out. It's kind of hard to get it super, super thin. You just want it to kind of be pretty even. I'm not gonna roll it this way because it is kind of thicker. I'm gonna go ahead and just roll the roast this way so that they're kind of shorter. Otherwise, I feel like, oh, that filling is gonna come out and so just cover it in your plastic wrap. And the idea is just kind of pound out the areas. Some areas are softer, so careful. If you start pounding it, you don't want to totally smush it, but you just want it to be even. That recipe says get it about a 1/3 inch. I don't know. This is more like a 1/2 inch. And it's fine. We're going to make it work. This is a little bit thicker. Okay. olive oil and fresh herb around here that we have with the salt and pepper. Good enough. And we will get these, give it a good mix. Just gotta make sure you get everything. Get just a nice good rub on both sides of each piece. If you want to throw a little more black pepper, go ahead. If you feel like you might need a little more salt, that's fine too. Go ahead and get those edges. All right, let's flip them. Now this fat that you see here, I don't want to take it off. I want to leave it on for when I sear them, because then that'll give some good flavor in the pan as well. So what I'm going to do is when I go to roll it, well, I'll show you in a second, but I'm going to roll it so that that's on the very outside, and we're going to sear that down first and melt off some of that fat that's on there. Okay, looking good. All right, good. Wasn't sure that I was gonna have enough of that for both of these, but I think that will work. Okay. So I'm gonna go ahead and get my hands washed, of course, and I'm going to get all these onions and stuff out of this pan because we're actually gonna sear it right in that pan. We'll then put some of the onions back into it, some of that broth, and then that pan is safe to go in the oven. So you wanna try to do it in like a heavy duty pan, something that's safe to go down in the oven. Cast iron is always such a great pan. If you don't have one, go get one. I actually got my other cast iron pan that I have is the first one that I've ever had, and we got that from some friends of ours about 5-6 years ago, and we cook in it constantly. So, great pan to have on hand.